Lutheranism, even in its most conservative forms, um, they don't know the wealth that they have in their
Yeah.
treasure house.
Mm.
And I think they try protecting vestments and liturgical rites, and whether you face the congregation and you read the gospel, or you don't face the congregation, or whether you light this candle here and you light the candle there. It seems like they're protecting the wrong thing. Um,
Yeah, that's maybe a better way to say it. Yeah.
but they have such a treasure house, such a powerful house in Luther's works, Luther's sermons. And I have listened to Lutheran preachers, and they're not preaching Luther. It sounds like they're preaching Wesley.
Hmm.
There's a great deal of emphasis on sanctification, and which the fruit of the Spirit needs to be there, but the
Yes.
gospel,
Yeah.
the devil tries so hard at snatching the gospel away from our hearts
Yeah.
that it needs to be preached constantly. And that's something that Luther says in his commentary on Galatians. It needs to be preached constantly because our flesh is so willing to forget it.
Yeah.
And we must be reminded constantly. And this little half hour, and here's another helpful criticism, I think. This little half hour of half law and half gospel, it doesn't cut it. When preachers are taught to preach, okay, so you preach law and you preach gospel, and it is not a true Lutheran sermon unless you preach law and then you preach God. Half hour won't cut it.
What else do we need?
More gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
More gospel. And, even the law is so powerful in
Mm.
showing us that we are sinners, that one or two verses on the law, well preached, should be enough to cut into our hearts and remind us of who we are.
Hmm.
But then the gospel needs to be the resounding note in our preaching. And I am so thankful for the pastor at my church, Our Savior Lutheran, in Plantation, Florida. A shout out to Tony Durante, who preaches this wonderful gospel every Sunday.
That's
We are nourished by it. I was so fortunate to land in his church.
That's so great to hear. I just had a thought as you were saying those final thoughts that I thought was worth mentioning, because you mentioned that the best word to describe maybe what's happening in Latin America is opportunity. And I think it's good to hear and remember that people are like, the growth of Christianity is the growth of Christianity. Let's take that as what it is. Like, people are believing, are being given faith in the work of Christ. But as you're saying now, that faith in that word and in that work needs to constantly be grown and sustained, and that happens through the preaching of the gospel. And so, what an opportunity for Lutherans to come in and say, "Hey, this isn't a one-time thing," which, unfortunately, I think, and I don't want to make a straw man, but where evangelical theology goes wrong is when the gospel is just a thing that you can kind of leave behind. So what an opportunity for Lutherans to come in and say, no, this is for you. This is for you, the new Christian. It's for you, the Christian who's mature and has been in the faith for years and years and years. It's for everyone in their particular situation, and you need to hear it over and over again. You don't leave the gospel behind to go focus on your works or your emotions or whatever it may be, or your obedience. So that, I think that is very helpful in this conversation.